Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance, watching the massive alien ships through the main view screen. The year was 2387, and this was humanity's first time joining the Galactic Federation's military exercises. After 50 years of talking and waiting, Earth had finally been allowed to send one warship to prove they belonged among the stars. The Defiance looked small and plain next to the other ships. The Altarian vessels were made of some kind of crystal that caught the light from nearby stars and threw it back in rainbow colors. The Zephyrian ships looked like they were alive, with hulls that moved and changed shape like breathing animals. Even the Corlin destroyers had smooth, flowing lines that made them look fast and deadly. But the Defiance was just gray metal, straight lines and sharp corners, built in Earth's orbital shipyards from good old steel and titanium, the kind of materials humans had been working with for hundreds of years. Nothing fancy or exotic about it. "Captain, we're getting another transmission from the Altarian flagship," said Lieutenant Commander Lisa Parker from her station. She was the ship's tactical officer, a woman with short brown hair and sharp green eyes that missed nothing. "Admiral, Kekstar wants to speak with you again." Morrison sighed. "Put him on screen, Parker." The view screen changed to show the inside of the Altarian command ship. Admiral Kekstar stood in the center, all 7 feet of him. His blue skin had silver markings that showed his high rank, and his 4 eyes all focused on Morrison at the same time. Behind him, other Altarian officers moved around stations that looked more like works of art than military equipment. "Captain Morrison," Kekstar said, his voice carrying that tone adults use when talking to children. "I must ask again if you are certain your vessel is ready for these exercises. The Federation has invested much time in bringing humanity into our organization. It would be unfortunate if your first military demonstration ended in embarrassment." Morrison kept his face blank. "We're ready, Admiral. The Defiance and her crew are prepared for whatever the exercise throws at us." Kekstar's 4 eyes blinked, in sequence which Morrison had learned was the Altarian way of showing amusement. Of course. But you must understand our concern. Your ship appears to be built with such primitive materials. Metal alloys, fusion reactors, chemical thrusters. We stopped using such crude technology over 1,000 years ago. Sometimes the old ways work just fine, Morrison replied. Indeed. Kekstar gestured to something off-screen. Perhaps you would benefit from observing how a proper warship operates. My flagship, the Crystal Dawn, uses quantum-fold engines and antimatter pulse cannons. The hull is grown from living crystal that can repair itself and adapt to different types of damage. It is powered by contained miniature stars. Morrison nodded politely. Sounds impressive. It is far more than impressive, Captain. It is the result of 10,000 years of advanced engineering. Your human ship, while charming in its simplicity, is like bringing a stone knife to a plasma sword fight. Kekstar paused, letting that sink in. I do hope your crew understands this is merely a training exercise. No shame in surrendering quickly when outmatched. The transmission ended, and Morrison turned to his first officer, Commander Alex Turner. Turner was a tall man with graying hair who had served on Earth's defense ships for 20 years before joining the deep space program. Friendly guy, Turner said with a dry smile. Really makes you feel welcome. Sir, Parker spoke up from her station. I'm picking up communications between the other ships. They're not bothering to encrypt them. What are they saying? Morrison asked. Parker's jaw tightened. They're making bets on how long we'll last. Most of them think we'll surrender in less than 5 minutes. The Corlin captain thinks we'll run away before the exercise even starts. Chief Engineer Sam Rodriguez climbed up from the engineering deck, wiping his hands on a rag. He was a stocky man with calloused hands and oil stains on his uniform that never quite came out. Captain, I couldn't help but overhear. These aliens really think we're that helpless? Seems that way, Morrison replied. Rodriguez shook his head. They obviously haven't done their homework. If they had, they'd know humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We got pretty good at it. They see our technology and think we're backwards, Turner added. They don't understand that different doesn't mean inferior. Morrison walked to the view screen and looked out at the alien fleet. 12 ships in total, each one larger and more advanced-looking than the Defiance. Their hulls gleamed with exotic materials and strange energy patterns. Weapons that could probably tear apart a planet. Shields that could stop anything humanity had ever built. At least anything they thought humanity had built. "Captain," called out Lieutenant Gary Walsh from the communications station, "we're receiving the exercise parameters. The scenario is simple. We have to survive against all 12 ships for 30 minutes. If we can do that, we pass the integration test." 30 minutes against 12 ships? Turner raised an eyebrow. "That's not a test, that's target practice." "That's the point," Morrison said quietly. "They don't expect us to last 30 seconds, let alone 30 minutes. This isn't about testing our abilities. It's about putting us in our place." Where? Looked up from her console. "Sir, the alien ships are moving into position. They're not even trying to hide their formations or strategies. The Altarians are taking the center, Zephyrians on the flanks, Corlins providing support. It's a standard overwhelming force tactic. They're treating this like a training exercise for their junior officers," Rodriguez observed. "Let the new guys practice shooting at the primitive humans." Morrison nodded. "That's exactly what this is. The Federation Council probably told them to go easy on us, not to completely destroy our ship. Just rough us up enough to show us where we stand in the galactic food chain." "Should we tell them we're not as helpless as we look?" Turner asked. Morrison smiled for the first time since the exercise began. "No, Commander. Let them find out for themselves. Rodriguez, are all our systems ready?" "Everything's green, Captain. We've been running on minimal power since we arrived." "They think what they're seeing on their sensors is our maximum capability. And our special packages?" "Locked and loaded, sir. Just waiting for your word." Morrison turned back to the view screen. The alien ships were almost in position now, their exotic weapons charging up with displays of light and energy that would have been beautiful under different circumstances. "All right, people," Morrison said to his crew. "They want to see what humanity is capable of. I say we show them, but let's make sure they never forget the lesson." The Kepler sector stretched out before them like a cosmic graveyard. Asteroids the size of cities drifted through space, some spinning slowly, others tumbling end over end. Strange gravitational pulls from a nearby collapsed star made the whole area dangerous to navigate. It was the perfect place for a military exercise, far from any inhabited worlds where stray weapons fire might cause problems. Captain Morrison watched the alien fleet spread out into attack formation. The 12 ships moved with practiced ease, their crews clearly experienced in working together. The Crystal Dawn took the center position, its rainbow hull catching light from the distant stars. The Zephyrian ships flanked it on both sides, their living hulls rippling like water. Behind them, the Corlin destroyers waited in reserve, their sleek forms ready to strike. "They're not even trying to hide their strategy," observed Commander Turner from his position next to Morrison. "It's a basic overwhelming force attack. Surround us, hit us from all sides, make surrender the only option." Lieutenant Parker studied her tactical display. "Sir, I'm reading their weapon signatures. Energy output is definitely reduced from maximum. They're using training settings." "How much reduced?" Morrison asked. "Maybe 30% of full power, enough to disable our ship without completely destroying it. They want us alive so we can tell everyone back on Earth how outmatched we were." Morrison nodded. "Makes sense. Can't have the new members of the Federation dying on their first day. That would look bad in the reports." Chief Rodriguez emerged from an access panel where he had been checking power connections. "Captain, all our systems are still running at minimum power. Their sensors are reading exactly what we want them to read. As far as they know, we're already pushing our engines and weapons to their limits just to keep up." "Good. Let them think. We're already struggling." The communications officer, Lieutenant Walsh, looked up from his station. "Sir, we're getting a transmission from Admiral Kextar. He wants to talk before the exercise begins." "Put him on screen." The Altarian Admiral appeared on the view screen, his four eyes showing what Morrison had learned was their version of concern. "Captain Morrison, my sensors indicate your ship is already operating at maximum capacity. Perhaps we should postpone this exercise until your vessel has undergone proper repairs." Morrison kept his expression neutral. "We're fine, Admiral. All systems are operating within normal parameters. Normal for humans, perhaps, Kextar replied with that patronizing tone again. But this exercise requires real military capabilities. I would hate for your crew to be injured due to equipment failure. We can handle ourselves. Kextar's eyes blinked in sequence. Of course you believe that. But consider this. My flagship alone has more firepower than your entire planet's defense fleet. The other ships with me represent the finest military technology in the galaxy. Your vessel, while admirable for human engineering, is simply not equipped for this level of combat. Then this should be over quickly, Morrison said. Indeed it should. When you are ready to surrender, simply broadcast on the emergency frequency. My medical teams are standing by to assist your crew. The transmission ended. Turner shook his head. He talks like we're children playing with toy weapons. In his mind, we probably are, Morrison replied. His species has been traveling between stars for thousands of years. To them, we just learned to leave our own solar system yesterday. 30 seconds until exercise begins, Parker announced. Morrison took his seat in the captain's chair. All stations, report status. Weapon systems ready, Parker said. All targeting computers online. Engines at full, apparent power, reported the helmsman, Lieutenant Kevin Brooks. He was young for his position, but he could fly the Defiance like it was part of his own body. Life support and artificial gravity nominal, added Lieutenant Maria Santos from Environmental Control. Engineering systems all green, Rodriguez called, from his station. Fusion reactor stable, power distribution normal. Communications and sensors functioning perfectly, Walsh reported. Morrison looked around his bridge, 24 people from Earth about to face the combined military might of 3 alien civilizations. The odds were impossible, which was exactly what made this interesting. Exercise begins in 10 seconds. Parker counted down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exercise is live. The alien ships opened fire immediately. Brilliant beams of energy lanced across space from the Altarian vessels, each one powerful enough to level a city block. The Zephyrian ships fired what looked like living projectiles that moved and twisted through space like angry snakes. The Corlin destroyers added their own weapons to the mix, sending waves of superheated plasma that turned the vacuum of space into a light show. The Defiance's shields flared as the attack struck home. The bridge lights flickered and Morrison felt the deck vibrate under his feet. Sparks flew from one of the secondary control panels. Shields holding at 60%, Parker reported, her voice steady despite the apparent damage. Hull breach, on Deck 7, Section 12. Emergency teams responding. They're playing with us, Turner observed, watching the tactical display. Those hits were perfectly placed to cause maximum visible damage with minimum actual harm. They want us to think we're in serious trouble. Brooks worked his controls, sending the Defiance into evasive maneuvers. The ship twisted and turned through the asteroid field, using the large rocks for cover. But there were 12 enemy ships, and they had spread out to cover all possible escape routes. Another barrage of energy weapons struck the Defiance. This time, the main lights went out for several seconds before emergency power kicked in. The artificial gravity fluctuated, making everyone grab onto their stations. Shields down to 40%, Parker announced. Another hit like that and we'll start taking real damage, Morrison nodded. Brooks, take us behind that large asteroid cluster, try to break their line of sight. Aye, sir. The Defiance dove toward a group of asteroids the size of small moons. The alien ships followed, spreading out to maintain their attack positions. Morrison could see on the tactical display that they were herding his ship, forcing it into a position where escape would be impossible. Sir, Walsh called out. I'm picking up communications between the alien commanders. They're discussing how long to let this continue before demanding our surrender. What's their estimate? The Corlin captain says 5 more minutes. Admiral, Kextar thinks we might last 10 if we're lucky. The Zephyrian commander is betting we'll surrender in the next 2 minutes. Rodriguez laughed from his engineering station. 2 minutes, that's insulting. I've seen Earth cargo haulers put up better fights than that. Morrison smiled grimly. Maybe it's time we change their expectations. Rodriguez, how are our real systems looking? All weapons charged and ready, Captain. Power reserves at 100%. We've been sipping energy like we're on a camping trip. Time to show them what happens when humans stop holding back. Parker looked at her tactical display, studying the positions of the alien ships. Sir, they've arranged themselves in a perfect target formation. They're so confident we can't hurt them that they're not even bothering with defensive positioning. Their shields? Minimal power. They're treating this like a training cruise, not a real battle. Morrison stood up from his chair and walked to the view screen. Outside, the alien ships continued their leisurely attack, their weapons creating beautiful but deadly patterns of light across the darkness of space. They thought they were teaching humanity a lesson about power and technology. They had no idea they were about to learn one themselves. All stations, Morrison said quietly. Prepare for full combat operations. Rodriguez, bring all systems to maximum power. Parker, release weapon locks and prepare to engage. Turner looked at him with a grin. Time to show them what humans do best? Morrison nodded. Time to show them that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one you think you understand. The moment Captain Morrison gave the order, everything about the USS Defiance changed. The ship that had been limping through space like a wounded animal suddenly became something else entirely. Something dangerous. All power to main systems. Rodriguez called out from engineering. Deep in the ship's hull, fusion reactors that had been running at barely 10% capacity roared to life. The Defiance's power signature spiked so dramatically that every alien ship in the area registered the change on their sensors. Admiral Kextar stared at his displays in confusion. What is happening? The human vessel's energy output just increased by 900%. On the bridge of the Defiance, Morrison watched as his ship transformed around him. Hull plates shifted and slid apart, revealing weapon ports that had been hidden beneath false panels. The gray metal exterior reconfigured itself, exposing targeting arrays and defensive systems that no alien scanner had detected. Weapon systems. Online, Parker reported, her voice tight with excitement. All railguns charged and ready. Targeting computers have solid locks on all 12 enemy vessels. Railguns? Commander Turner raised an eyebrow. That's what we're calling them now? Morrison smiled. The aliens understand energy weapons and exotic matter manipulation. They've never seen what happens when you accelerate a piece of metal to 20% of light speed. Lieutenant Brooks worked his controls and the Defiance began moving differently. No longer the clumsy, struggling vessel it had appeared to be, it now moved with the precision of a hunting cat. The ship's true navigation systems came online, powered by artificial intelligence that could calculate thousands of possible flight paths in milliseconds. Sir, Walsh reported from communications, the alien ships are trying to contact each other. Their communications are full of confusion. They don't understand what just happened to us. Let them wonder, Morrison replied. Parker, target the Altarian flagship. Let's start with Admiral Kextar since he was so helpful with his advice. Parker's fingers danced across her targeting controls. Firing solution locked on the Crystal Dawn. Target is their main reactor housing. Range is 4,000 kilometers. Fire. The Defiance's first railgun fired with almost no visible effect. No bright beam of energy, no dramatic explosion of light. Just a small tungsten projectile, no bigger than a coffee cup, accelerating down a magnetic tunnel at incredible speed. The projectile crossed the 4,000 kilometers to its target in less than a second. The Crystal Dawn's shields, designed to deflect energy weapons and absorb plasma blasts, offered no resistance to the solid metal slug. The tungsten projectile punched through the exotic crystal hull like it was made of paper. Inside the Altarian flagship, alarms began screaming as the projectile struck the ship's main reactor containment system. The carefully controlled miniature star that powered the vessel suddenly became uncontrolled. For a brief moment, the Crystal Dawn's reactor core burned brighter than the distant suns. Then the entire ship simply vanished in a flash of white light. On the bridge of the Defiance, Parker calmly reported, target destroyed. 11 enemy vessels remaining. The alien fleet erupted in panic. Ships that had been casually floating in loose formation suddenly scattered, their crews finally understanding they were in real danger. The Zephyrian vessels began rapid evasive maneuvers, their living hulls rippling as they tried to present smaller targets. "Impossible," shouted the Corlan captain over the emergency communication channel. "How did they destroy the Crystal Dawn? Our sensors show no energy weapon discharge." "Second target acquired," Parker announced. "Zephyrian cruiser, portside, they're trying to run." Fire. Another tungsten projectile launched from the Defiance. The Zephyrian ship's biomechanical hull tried to adapt, forming thicker armor where its sensors predicted the attack would come. But the projectile moved faster than the ship's biological systems could react. The slug punched through 3 decks before striking the vessel's neural center, the living brain that controlled the ship's functions. The Zephyrian cruiser went dead in space, its hull flickering between colors as its dying nervous system sent random signals throughout the vessel. "Target disabled," Parker reported. 10 ships remaining. Morrison watched the tactical display as the alien ships finally began to take the threat seriously. They were bringing their weapons to full power and activating maximum shields, but their technology was designed to fight other energy-based weapons, not solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. "Brooks, take us into the asteroid field," Morrison ordered. "Use the rocks for cover. Let them come to us." The Defiance dove between massive asteroids, its true navigation systems allowing it to thread through gaps that would have been impossible before. Behind them, the alien ships followed, but they had to move more carefully. Their larger vessels couldn't match the human ship's agility in the confined space. "Sir," Walsh called out, "I'm picking up transmissions to the alien homeworlds. They're trying to call for reinforcements." "Jam their communications," Morrison ordered. "I don't want word of this getting out until we're finished here." Rodriguez activated the Defiance's electronic warfare systems. Powerful transmitters flooded the local space with interference, cutting off the alien ships from the outside galaxy. Now it was just 12 ships against 1, with no outside help coming. A Corlan destroyer managed to get close enough to fire its plasma cannons. Bright green energy struck the Defiance's port side, but the human ship's shields held firm. Unlike the aliens' human shield technology was designed to handle both energy and kinetic attacks. "Return fire," Morrison commanded. Parker launched 2 projectiles simultaneously. The first struck the Corlan ship's engine section, sending it spinning out of control. The second hit its weapon systems, silencing its plasma cannons permanently. The destroyer drifted helplessly, its crew evacuating in escape pods. 9 ships left, Turner observed. "They're starting to spread out more, learning from their mistakes." "Too little, too late," Morrison replied. "Parker, target that Zephyrian battleship, the big one trying to flank us." "Locked and loaded, sir." The railgun fired again. This time, the Zephyrian ship tried something different. Its hull suddenly split apart, creating multiple smaller targets. It was a desperate defense mechanism, but the tungsten projectile had already been fired at the ship's center mass. The slug tore through the separated hull sections one after another, before finally striking the ship's power core. The Zephyrian battleship collapsed in on itself as its gravitational containment systems failed. 8 ships remaining, Parker announced. The surviving alien vessels were now in full retreat, but the asteroid field made escape difficult. The Defiance pursued them relentlessly, its superior maneuverability allowing it to stay ahead of their desperate attempts to flee. "Sir," Rodriguez reported, "we're using ammunition faster than I'd like. Each railgun shot requires significant power to accelerate the projectile. We can keep this up for maybe 20 more minutes. That should be enough," Morrison replied, watching as another Corlan ship exploded under the impact of a tungsten slug. "They're running out of places to hide." The aliens tried everything they could think of. They fired their weapons at maximum power, trying to overwhelm the Defiance's shields through sheer volume of fire. They attempted to ram the human ship, hoping their larger mass would give them an advantage. They even tried working together, coordinating their attacks to hit the Defiance from multiple directions at once. Nothing worked. The human ship was too fast, too well protected, and too deadly. Every time an alien vessel came within range, Parker's railgun spoke and another enemy disappeared in fire and debris. Within 15 minutes of the Defiance revealing its true capabilities, only 2 alien ships remained functional. They had stopped trying to fight and were now simply trying to survive, hiding behind the largest asteroids they could find. Morrison opened a communication channel to the surviving ships. "This is Captain Morrison of the USS Defiance. To the remaining vessels, you have fought well, but this exercise is over. Surrender now and we'll allow you to evacuate your crews safely." There was a long pause before the Corlin captain responded. "Captain Morrison, how is this possible? Our intelligence report said humans were a primitive species with basic technology." Morrison smiled grimly. "Your intelligence was wrong. Different doesn't mean primitive. We just solve problems differently than you do. But your weapons, they appear to be simple kinetic projectiles. How can they penetrate our defenses?" "Because your defenses were designed to stop energy weapons," Morrison explained. "You've been fighting each other for so long with lasers and plasma cannons that you forgot about the most basic weapon in the universe, throwing rocks really, really fast." The surviving alien crews began evacuating their ships, finally understanding that they had been completely outmatched. The exercise that was supposed to humble humanity had instead taught the galaxy a harsh lesson about underestimating their newest members. The silence in space was almost complete. Where 12 proud alien warships had begun the exercise an hour ago, now only scattered debris drifted among the asteroids. Emergency beacons flashed from hundreds of escape pods as alien crews waited for rescue ships to arrive. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance, looking out at the aftermath of what would soon be known throughout the galaxy as the Kepler incident. His ship hung motionless in space, its gray hull unmarked except for a few scorch marks from the aliens' desperate final attacks. The hidden weapon ports had closed again, making the Defiance look like the same harmless vessel that had arrived for the exercise. "Damage report," Morrison asked his crew. "Shields took some hits but held firm," reported Parker from her tactical station. "No hull breaches, no system damage. We used about 40% of our railgun ammunition." Chief Rodriguez wiped his hands on his uniform. "All systems running perfectly, Captain. The reactors barely broke a sweat. We could do this exercise 5 more times without needing repairs." Commander Turner shook his head in amazement. 40 minutes ago, they thought we were helpless. Now half their fleet is space dust and the survivors are too scared to move. Lieutenant Walsh looked up from his communications console. "Sir, I'm getting priority transmissions from the alien home worlds. Word of what happened here is spreading fast. The Federation Council is demanding a full report." Morrison nodded. "Open a channel to the escape pods. Let's talk to our defeated opponents." Admiral Kextar's voice came through the speakers, transmitted from his escape pod near where his flagship used to be. His usual confident tone was gone, replaced by something that sounded like shock. "Captain Morrison, I do not understand what just happened here. My ship was destroyed by a simple projectile. How is this possible?" "It's not simple, Admiral," Morrison replied. "It's basic physics. We accelerated a piece of tungsten to 20% of light speed. At that velocity, it doesn't matter what your hull is made of or how strong your shields are. Kinetic energy doesn't care about your technology. But such weapons are primitive. We abandoned kinetic weapons thousands of years ago when we developed energy-based systems." Morrison walked closer to the view screen. "You abandoned them because you started fighting other species that used energy weapons. You built defenses to stop lasers and plasma cannons. You forgot that sometimes the oldest solutions are still the best ones." Commander Turner stepped forward. "Your species learned to fight in space, where energy weapons are clean and efficient. Humans learned to fight on planets where gravity and atmosphere matter. We've been throwing rocks at each other since we lived in caves. We just learned to throw them faster." The Corlin captain's voice joined the conversation from another escape pod. "But your ship appeared so primitive on our sensors. Metal construction, fusion power, chemical thrusters. We thought you were centuries behind our technology." "Different doesn't mean backward," Morrison explained. "We took a different path. While you were developing exotic matter manipulation and quantum fold drives, We were perfecting mass drivers and kinetic weapons. Your ships are beautiful and advanced. Ours are simple and effective. Rodriguez's voice came from the engineering section. Captain, we're getting scan requests from some of the escape pods. Their crews want to understand how our weapons work. Deny the scans, Morrison ordered. They'll figure it out eventually, but not today. Walsh raised his hand. Sir, incoming transmission from Earth. Admiral Hayes wants to speak with you immediately. Morrison smiled. Admiral Nicole Hayes was the head of Earth's Space Defense Force. She had been against sending the Defiance to these exercises, worried that humanity wasn't ready to face alien military technology. She was probably expecting to hear that her fears had been proven correct. Put her through on my private channel, Morrison said. Admiral Hayes appeared on a small screen at Morrison's command station. She was a stern woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that had seen too many battles. Morrison, what the hell is happening out there? I'm getting reports that you destroyed an entire alien fleet. The reports are accurate, Admiral. The exercise went better than expected. Hayes stared at him in disbelief. Better than expected? Jake, you were supposed to last 30 minutes against 12 ships. Instead, you wiped them out in under an hour. The Federation Council is in emergency session. 3 alien species are demanding explanations. Morrison nodded. They underestimated us, Admiral. They saw our technology and assumed we were helpless. They forgot that humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. And now? Now they know better. The galaxy just learned that humanity is not the helpless newcomer they thought we were. Hayes rubbed her forehead. This is either going to make us the most respected species in the Federation or the most feared. I'm not sure which is worse. Respect and fear often go together, Morrison replied. At least they won't be laughing at us anymore. The transmission from Earth ended and Morrison turned back to the main view screen. Rescue ships were arriving now. Large vessels from the alien homeworlds coming to collect their defeated crews. The ships moved carefully, staying well away from the Defiance. Sir, Parker reported, the rescue ships are requesting permission to approach the debris field. They want to collect their people and salvage what they can. Grant permission, Morrison said. But make sure they know we're monitoring their activities. No scanning our ship, no attempts to recover our ammunition. Turner watched the alien rescue operations begin. Think they'll be back for revenge? Morrison considered the question. No. They're military officers, not pirates. They understand they were beaten fairly in a legitimate exercise. But this changes everything between humanity and the rest of the galaxy. Rodriguez emerged from the engineering section, a satisfied grin on his face. Captain, I just got word from Earth. The Defense Force is already ordering 50 more ships like the Defiance. Seems like the government is finally taking space defense seriously. Good, Morrison replied. We're going to need them. Walsh looked up from his station. Sir, I'm getting a transmission from the Federation Council. They want the Defiance to return to Federation space immediately for debriefing. Tell them we'll comply, Morrison said. But first, we complete our mission here. Help with the rescue operations. Make sure all the alien crews are safe. Parker nodded approvingly. Show them we're not monsters. Just because we can fight doesn't mean we're bloodthirsty. Exactly. The galaxy needs to learn 2 lessons today. First, that humanity is far more dangerous than they thought. Second, that we're still the kind of people who help our enemies when the fighting is over. Morrison walked to the center of his bridge and looked around at his crew. 24 humans who had just changed the course of galactic history. They had proven that humanity belonged among the stars, not as junior partners or comic relief, but as equals. All stations prepare for rescue operations, Morrison ordered. Let's show these aliens what human honor looks like. As the Defiance moved to assist the rescue ships, Morrison reflected on what had just happened. The exercise had been designed to put humanity in its place, to show them how small and weak they were compared to the great civilizations of the galaxy. Instead, it had shown the galaxy that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. The species that had spent centuries fighting each other on a single world had brought those skills to space. And space would never be the same. Years later, When historians wrote about the day humanity joined the galactic community as true equals, they would point to the Kepler incident. The day when 12 alien warships tried to humble a single human vessel, and learned that sometimes the most dangerous opponent is the one you think you understand. The USS Defiance headed home to Earth, carrying news that would reshape the galaxy. Behind them, alien rescue ships collected the survivors of a fleet that had learned the hard way never to underestimate the humans again.